Good evening. How are you? I'm John Flannery, and I'm doing a sit and talk because I wanted to talk about the election, and that's why I've waited until now to do so. This has been probably the most dramatic election. Uh, I don't know if it's in my lifetime, but there are very few experiences in politics that can compare to what's happened this evening. As you know, there were two states choosing governors, one choosing a mayor, New York, and in California there was Proposition 50 on the question of whether or not they could redraw lines to combat what Texas was doing in terms of congressional redistricting. In Virginia, Abigail got 57.4% of the vote over the Republican 42.4. In New Jersey, Cheryl got 56.2% of the vote over 43.2 in opposition. In New York, Mamdani got 50.4% and his opposition Cuomo got 41%. In California, I don't know if these numbers are final in California because I don't think the polls change there until 11. In any case, what's being reported is that it's overwhelmingly being approved at 64.6% and the opposition at 35.4%. Thank you, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Next time, be quiet or choose a better position. Why? It's everything we've done. What we've done, we the people, and this encompasses we the people, jurists who care about the rule of law and following the facts, states' attorney generals complaining on behalf of the 21 or so states that they represent to make things right. In recent days, even the Senate has sort of lurched forward and put down its foot and said, unless you do something about insurance, unless you do something about food, there will be no agreement on the shutdown. So what is the election about? What happened in America? Well, the clearest message that I see, it may have come from New York, Mamdani, when he basically said, there isn't a place for the middle class, the working men and women, and I'm going to change that. In other words, people are hurting. People know when they're hurt. People know when they're lied to. They know when their income is compromised by this dumb tariff plan that affects what they have to pay, including for groceries. They know that health insurance is critically important at every age and that we are out of step with the rest of civilized nations who provide for health care. So people have been put at risk. They've been put at risk by the Trump regime. You could ask why, and the answer is brutality, and that they just want to have, out of greed, more money and compromise the ability by diminishing the opportunities individuals have to make a living and to get on. Now, there's also been enough time and data points for us to marinate in the truth, to help us know that Trump and his surrogates are lying and about these issues, about all of these issues. They deny that people are hurting. They deny their income's compromised. They deny that groceries cost more, on and on and on. But the people got it. We the people, and that's what it says in the Constitution, we the people, when 7 million took to the streets to object, when across the world other nation states had demonstrations in sympathy because they know it's not the people, they know it is the Trump regime. And so everybody can see that Trump's polluted policy porridge has little for the working man or woman or for their children. But for Trump and the rich, that's another story. And that is the story of this evening. That is also the story of a Democratic Party that is missing the point. A long time ago when I ran for Congress, there was a shift from the working men and women who were the core of the Democratic Party and of the success of the Democratic Party. But some wanted to get in on the money. They believed that they could do what the Republicans do. They could take the money and still represent the working men and women. And there has been an agreement of sorts that was a stated and unstated alliance between those who are wealthy and those who are the labor, the capital and the labor. And then, I don't know, the whisper campaign became public, and the wealthy decided it wasn't enough, though there's no way they could spend or use all those funds. And so what the wealthy and what Trump did was to destroy freedom and peace and equality and opportunity and truth and empathy. Also, therefore, the republic and our democracy. This presages a future of misfortune if we don't stop it now, if we don't take another course, if we don't go to the fortunate path that can make all the difference in people's lives. And what we saw this evening was a demand to go forward with a new model, a model that reflects the fact that we're all in this together and that we have to take care of the public welfare. The Democratic Party, I'm sorry to say, is not the reason for tonight's victory. It is not. Because they resisted in ways solutions when they should have been embracing them. The best example is that Schumer didn't endorse Mamdani in New York. Why should he have? Well, because he won a Democratic primary. He was the standard bearer for the so-called Democratic Party. What is the value of a party if the leadership doesn't then come behind the person who was, in this case, elected to go forward into the general election and to try to convince the people to follow the program he had, which at the heart of it was not complicated and understandable by anyone, particularly given the missteps and callous actions of Trump. People were hurting. People are hurting as I speak to you. That is a worthy goal for us to solve. That people should not hurt, that our friends and neighbors should not hurt, and that we have to move in a way that makes this a better nation. You've heard me repeat time and time again, what is the standard of civilization? And it is how we treat our own, and other nation states understand that and reflect that. By contrast to Schumer, who never endorsed Mamdani, Jeffries did, but he was slow to the endorsement. Now, on the other hand, Trump didn't show in any of these races. For all of his invulnerability and strength and power and popularity, which is not reflected in any of the statistical polling that has gone on, he didn't show. Like all cowards, he ran for the hills. He wasn't prepared to test what he tells us about how popular he is by showing up. And there were token steps to do that. And if he had appeared anywhere, it would have only hurt the election more than it already did. Now, when you get gaps like we're talking about, 57 to 42%, 56 to 43%, 50% to 41%, and in California, 64 to 35%, you're talking about a groundswell for change. You're talking about a people that is saying enough is enough. We're talking about people that have looked at what seemed like a random walk for months now, certainly since this man put his hand on a Bible and lied. We have been looking at how do we improve upon our situation? And it appears that it was not a random walk. The steps we took led people to think and inform themselves and to resolve to press on no matter how distracted and hurt these actions took on their very soul, on their conscience, on their real world requirements, logistics, to live, to pay for themselves, for their children, to give them education and everything else like that. I'm a kid from the South Bronx. I'm not saying that to complain about it. I didn't know anything really different, but there were schools and I had an appetite to learn and I was interested in math and science, and that in a way, got me out of the Bronx. And I still respect and wish things were better in the Bronx. Um, it's interesting, Mamdani, apparently, if I got my facts straight, he won in the Bronx. So this has been a sensational evening. This is something we have to build on. Now, one of the first things that some are going to say, now we should do this, is to have the senators collapse the resistance they've had and just sign a continuing resolution without modification that takes into account the insurance, the Affordable Care Act, that takes into account how we feed the children. And we have to persist in that. Yes, it means pain, maybe for all of us, in ways that we cannot anticipate now, because we need the strength of our position to show to the world, to show across the nation that we mean business and that this government cannot stand. And I'm not proposing anything that isn't constitutional or legal. In fact, it is because this administration, this regime, is unconstitutional and illegal, has no decorum, does whatever it wants. Talk about a bull in a china shop. And the largest thing that just jumps out is the absence of soul, the feeling of the connection one to another. You know, what all the great philosophers have talked about, Aristotle, there's nothing more important than politics. And what he's talking about is how do you and I deal with a problem so that we come up with solutions so it can work. But if you, and this is true of the MAGA people, if you are basing it on things that are not facts, not using science, believe in demons, as Congresswoman Green does, so she said just a couple of days ago, you can't make decisions that way. If there's anything from myself studying physics and engineering and those things that I thought I might want to do when I was younger and I had some ability at it, it was to learn that you have to take these facts and decide what they are. And there's a statement in, if you will, information theory. If the facts going in are flawed, then what comes out is garbage. It's called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And there could not be more of an appropriate way to describe Trump and his people than that they just live in garbage and that they spread it and they use it to conceal what else they're doing. Well, we had a big night tonight, and it didn't happen overnight, and it happened because of everything people do. The 7 million who took to the streets, the judges appointed by Republican and Democratic presidents who used the Constitution and the law and precedent and studied the facts to get it right. And we find a deterioration in the quality of this analysis as we move to courts of appeal and certainly to the Supreme Court and the Gang of Six. We have seen the Senate take some steps, in my opinion, hesitantly to fight, and I think they should stay the course. But then we've seen some Democrats who are selling out, and maybe they shouldn't be Democrats because they do not embrace the only solution that works here, which is to respect the Constitution, respect the law, build the trust of Americans and of other nation states, and stop marauding like pirates, and stop just killing people in the area. This is not acceptable. So you probably have your own views and they may not differ. And to the extent that I've said exactly what you already know and believe, I apologize. But I do feel, as perhaps you do, that we're all part of something important and significant. And it is, if not a reaffirmation of our country and its purpose, of a move toward a future, toward a fortunate, virtuous plan that brings us all along. You know, the notion that every day we read something hurtful and terrible and bad practice, whether it's somebody taking a jet to see a girlfriend or deciding to go after people because they differed with Trump legitimately, as far as I can tell, both investigating him and saying things about him, goes after his own staff. We have a madman in the West Wing who literally is tearing it down symbolically and in fact, in truth. Nothing should be built to replace what he destroyed, not while he is in the White House. And we have to reconsider how we handle our monuments, even to worry about a bathroom in the White House by this character. So, from beginning to end, from the documents that say we are entitled to equal justice before law, to have the opportunity to make a difference, to care for our friends and neighbors and family. That's the America that I embrace. That's the America I want. And the Democratic Party is just going to have to catch up because they're not there. The leadership knows better. They want to continue to have the money from the wealthy. But right now, that's fraternization with the enemy, because wealthy have decided to be greedy. And when I say wealthy, and I'm talking about billionaires, it's obviously not all, because there are a number of people who have, by their genius, their effort, and whatever, who have amassed funds and resources and so forth, and they do make a difference. And then there are these others in which no amount is enough. So, congratulations to each and every one of you who voted, wrote a note, made a contribution, went to a rally, who care that we get this right and care about America. And no person, young or old, should be thinking, is this the way America is going to be for the rest of my life? And the answer is, the way it's going to be is what we did tonight. All the people who were involved in these elections stood up and said, enough is enough. We are going forward. We're going to put this thing together, and we're going to stop this madness in the West Wing. So that's a few thoughts I have for the evening, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, perhaps on the road. All the best. Bye-bye.